welcome to Our Healing Voices podcast and YouTube channel. I'm Aaron Lehman. This is episode 44 with Kristina Renée. And I'm just excited that you're here. So if this is your first time joining the Our Healing Voices podcast, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Excited to have you here. And for those of you who are brand new, just a little backstory on Our Healing Voices, where it came from. A couple of years ago, February, I was hanging out with some other wellness people, and I'm like, man, I really want to interview powerful voices around me. I really want to interview healing voices around me. Like, I was like, I want us to know. I think for me, in my body, mind, spirit wellness journey, which has been, ongoing here over the last 15, 20 years since college, sometimes it feels pretty lonely. It can feel pretty lonely. And whether that's, different modalities that you might dive into, whether that's staying in on a Friday night when your friends are out having fun in other ways, because you're so locked in on a book that's like changing your life. Whatever the case, sometimes it can feel lonely. And it's like, does anybody else like care about this stuff? Or am I the only one? And so my journey with massage and yoga training, and then working at like a hippie teen camp, I started to meet so many different amazing humans. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm definitely not alone. There are so many people out there saying yes to their body, mind, spirit wellness. And it may not look like me exactly. We all have our unique paths, but it was just really encouraging seeing other people on the path. And so doing these podcast interviews, doing these interviews is really to be a reminder for all of us that there are lots of people transforming for love, transforming in love, and really seeking to say yes to more love in their lives and in their communities and in our world. So that is a huge reason I started this podcast. And then the voices piece is just really, for me, being raised in a household where my parents emphasized giving each of us kids the microphone to like talk about our feelings, process our days. They were both, guidance counselors, like school counselors. And so I, could hold down a microphone for a few hours solo. But my hope is that whether as you're listening, to Kristina today, and as I'm listening today, may we all know that our voices are really important at the table, that our voices matter, that our stories matter. And that our transformation matters, right? And this voice, and whatever that means to you, whether that means a book is inside of you, maybe that means you reach out to me after this episode and you're like, hey, I think I want to share a bit of what I'm walking through. Whatever the case may be, just that we know that our voice is important, on this journey through life. So on that note, I'd love to introduce Kristina Renée, who I'm so excited to have join us today. A quick story is I attended a meditation class probably 3.5, 4 years ago here in California, and Kristina facilitated it. And I felt I was like teleported, transported to just a very, very happy, wonderful place. And so since then, we've just kind of seen each other on occasion in the area, and and then followed each other through the internet. And I just continue to be inspired by what Kristina Renée is showing up with, what she is sharing in this world. And so I'm just, I was really excited to get to interview her and hear more and have her share some of her story with all of you. All right, so Kristina Renée is a depth hypnosis practitioner, coming to peace facilitator, a yoga, pranayama, and meditation guide, and integrative somatic therapist. She provides sessions via phone, Zoom, or similar platforms worldwide She works both locally and non-locally with individuals and with groups in healing circles and inner guidance journeys. Kristina integrates her studies in Buddhist philosophy, yoga, mindfulness, trauma-informed education and therapies, earth-based wisdom, energy medicine, and psychology to inform her work as a depth hypnosis practitioner and coming to peace facilitator. So, and to close, she works with a wide range of issues, clients present, and curates a compassionate curiosity and collaborative space for her clients. She helps people connect, discover, and reclaim their own personal power, understand and unravel harmful patterns, and access their own innate abilities of healing to live more freely in the world and in their relationships. So yeah, if that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what else could. I mean, that gets me so excited to have our conversation today, Kristina. And so to start, would you mind just telling us a little bit about the train's excited right now. So we'll let the train be excited. Because you're coming live and we're getting to know you now. So will you tell us a little bit about your life journey? Have there been some key experiences in your life that have shaped the way you view the world today? And what has led you into the work that you're offering today?
Yeah. Well, first, I just want to thank you so much for this opportunity, Aaron. And it's just sitting here listening to you and your experience and your intention and what has brought you here and why you're doing this. I feel just so honored to be here and to be in collaboration. So thank you for this.
Thank you.
So I came to Earth on Samhain, which is known as Halloween, for those of you who may not be familiar with the name Samhain. And through different cultures and mythology, that time of the year is known kind of as a veil, where the space between the seen and the unseen worlds is thin or open or expansive. So just kind of sitting with that for a moment, that was when in some existence, my conscious being decided that I needed to be born into Earth on that veil. And that's been a catalyst for so much of my life, whether I knew that or didn't know that. And when that veil is thin, there's this possibility for us to bridge connection to the unseen. And we'll learn more about why that's so important. And another way to look at this, which we'll be talking a lot about today, is ordinary world and non-ordinary worlds, unseen worlds and seen worlds. So right now we're in this ordinary world, you and I, in this conversation. While at the same time, the non-ordinary, the unseen, is here as well. Another way to think about the unseen is the shadow. And so if you think about Halloween, we can kind of all think of, oh, the shadows, like what comes out. And the work that I do in depth hypnosis is to navigate in these worlds. So I always just kind of sit with that in terms of this lifetime and how I came in and where I am now, and see that connection. So I feel like that's been a big, important piece to the work I'm in. And then in addition to that, part of this journey in this life is I was born into a home with a father who was a pastor and a mother who was a stay-at-home mother. And I had this burning desire to understand religion and mysticism, spirituality, nature, earth-based wisdoms, and to kind of question anything that limited the exploration of these things. And that ended up leading me on a path of understanding any limitations of our overculture systems that end up deeply impacting one's ability to be in connection with their inner guidance. And I could feel that as a child. It was always something I could feel when I asked these questions about why and how. And I was met a lot with a way of things that they just are. as opposed to an inquiry or a curiosity. And that always stuck with me and kind of brought it into my adulthood. So the road to where I am today was like most human beings, in that it's really was quite messy and it was filled with trauma. And my willingness to question the status quo and to seek the truth. And I loved how, Aaron, you mentioned this, how it can feel alone, right? While it did isolate me at times, growing up with this, it also led me to a deeper understanding of source and onto a path of practicing life in right relationship and in ritual and in prayer. So now it's been 25 years of conscious modalities in practice and study. And I still have a lot to discover. But I hold with me this foundation within myself and my connection to my inner guidance that supports me. And I have a really beautiful community that's worldwide through the foundation of the Sacred Stream with fellow depth hypnosis practitioners, along with a sisterhood and fellowship of like-minded healing practitioners worldwide who also are supportive. So, when you ask that question, like, how does your life and where you have come and in looking at the world at large today, right? How do I bring that in when there's uncertainties of the world, the war, the suffering, the pain that is very real and happening? And of course, the pandemic, and we're all still in the recovery of the trauma that was trauma on a collective level, and then there's that individual trauma. And now with all these resources, with all these tools, I can go within and I can understand my personal connection to the pains that are around and begin to use a lot of my Buddhist philosophies and practices of fierce compassion, so I can continue to be on this path of service with others. And, it's a roundabout way of getting here. We've all had our roundabout ways of getting to where we are. But one of the things that I've always held true to my heart since I was a child is that, I remember saying this to my dad one day when I was pretty young, it's about that because we all have this spiritual connection, that we truly can or could experience any one thing that anyone had. It's just that the way in which we experience it, depending on what we're bringing in to this lifetime, will alter the perspective of that. And of course, I didn't say it like that as a child to my dad. But there's this knowing that as we each unravel the cycling of energy of these karmic patterns, that we stay in connection to that inner wisdom and guidance that along the journey of human experiences, because of culture, because of family upbringings, because of how we experience trauma or how we go through hardship, it becomes disconnected. We become disconnected to ourselves. And so that journey I said of mine being messy, I look back and kind of, I can smile and say, wow, I can see all those moments where I was disconnected, and through the healing work, reclaiming those parts that got lost to come back into my inner wisdom and my inner guidance. And at the heart of this work for me is to help others connect to that unseen part of themselves. Because as we individually do that, I truly believe that we collectively begin to alter the way we live in the world. Because as we relate differently to ourselves, that bleeds out into all of our relationships in life. So what led me to this work today? Well, I sense you can kind of gain a little deeper understanding now of that inquiry.
Wow. Yeah, that's thank you. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I mean, wow, the from dad as a pastor, that obviously intrigues my mind, right? Is like, wow, and then this openness energy, right? This openness and curiosity, and like, how are things woven together? I mean, interconnection, inner guidance. Yeah, I definitely would love to watch your life movie up till now. As you're sharing that, I'm like, wow, that would be a phenomenal. Yeah, I would love to be a fly and see your journey. Wow. And as you share, I'm just like, my eyes just closed because I love just your voice is so soothing and calming. Um, all right, so
Mhm.
yeah, the what came to me was this inner wisdom, inner guidance.
Mm.
You know, whether it's for newer people on the path of body, mind, spirit, wellness, expansion. Um, how do you have any guidance on how would someone begin to even have that conversation with themselves within, right? What are there would there be any offerings you would share for somebody who's much newer to this space? I mean, even I'm curious myself, right? Because as I heard you describe that disconnect, right, where you're like, "Ooh,
Mhm.
what's going on?" Right now, I'm dealing with some foot pain. Like, what's going on within me? Did I injure it, or am I like manifesting this foot pain thing for some other reason that's going on in my energetic, emotional, spirit space, right? So I'm curious about this inner dialogue, the inner wisdom. How
Mm.
would one begin to have conversation with themselves and open to hear that more clearly? Anyway,
Mm. Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, a few things are coming to my mind when you ask that question. And in the practice of depth hypnosis, it would, we wouldn't answer that question for you.
mm-hmm.
Inquiry would be, well, how do you think you can connect to that inner wisdom?
Yeah,
Because each of us are going to find their own um, their own authenticity and their own pathway to cultivating a deeper sense of connection. And that's just kind of like the first thing that came up in my mind.
yeah,
But then, of course, I'm keeping in the field here that we're in an interview podcast, and we're
right.
wanting to learn about depth hypnosis. So if I just step away from that and kind of go into a more overarching way of exploring that inquiry, it would be in the sense of, well, depth hypnosis would be an option.
Mm-hmm.
and what that actually means, and what that practice is, and different modalities and methods that we use within that structure to come into that inner guidance, to come into that inner wisdom. And a lot of it is to heal those traumas in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, say more about the depth hypnosis.
Okay.
Yeah, practice, because I'm like, yeah,
Yeah. And maybe I asked this too.
yeah,
What do you know about depth hypnosis or hypnosis or hypnotherapy?
yeah. I mean, my massage school offered like hypnotherapy, but I never dove in. I don't think I even have had a session yet. Like I've I've heard miracle stories about how hypnotherapies, helped people with long time addictions be able to like, basically break the bond. So, I watched a little clip of the depth hypnosis, this like sacred stream on YouTube,
Mm.
just to learn a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, as I see it, it's like, right, my awake state, conscious state is like, all right, how I'm in and around in this world. And then the depth hypnosis is like, okay, I'm way more than this brain on a body walking through on the earth, it's like I'm way more than this. So it's inviting. I mean, yeah, why don't you yeah, I've kind of gathered.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And I love, I do that intentionally because, and I'm going to just kind of put this out here, and it doesn't mean as the viewer, the people are listening to this, that is or isn't someone's experience, but there is kind of this, in a way, an idea around hypnotherapy, and oftentimes kind of a fear where people have this uncertainty about it. And so that's why I often ask, like, what's your understanding of it? What do you know about it? Just to kind of, put that out there in the field so we can really examine it and look at it.
Totally.
Okay, so depth hypnosis is
Wait, Christy, I do have to say, I did have one experience.
Okay.
I went on a stage. This is where most of us have had experience with hypnosis, right?
Okay.
I did go on a stage. No, I didn't go on a stage, but I remember being in the audience watching a hypnosis, like, do this. It was in college, and I floated out fast, just like as an audience member, just being in the space. It was like so anyway.
Okay.
Sorry, I just wanted so I'm that's, I feel like a lot of folks have gotten that download, right, on hypnosis or whatever, is like through some college event or anyway, sorry, keep going.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think there is this connotation that hypnotherapy is being controlled, that someone is coming in and navigating for you how to kind of change the structural experience within your psyche. And here's the thing, I kind of debunk this right now. That's not true. So that doesn't mean that your experience that you had wasn't real and wasn't true, but the idea that someone can control you without you in some level giving consent, giving permission, that's not hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
So, just kind of like just holding that in our awareness. And growing up as a child, I had that same imagery, especially in a very religious family who, hypnotherapy in a way was sort of taboo growing up because of that idea that it controlled you. So over the course of adulthood and being in the healing modalities of integrative medicine, my ideas that were downloaded to me from my authority figures was very much debunked and put into different perspectives. Okay, so let's just dive into depth hypnosis in itself. So first and foremost, depth hypnosis is a comprehensive, integrative therapeutic approach to counseling, which has, in a way, you could think of it as 5 pillars. And the first of those is hypnotherapy. And another way to think about hypnotherapy for everyone is is like meditation, a guided meditation, or you're altering your consciousness in a sense that you're moving. Another way I like to think about hypnotherapy is right now we're talking in the brainwave state of beta. Aaron and I are talking in beta. You're listening most likely in the brainwave state of beta, unless you're falling asleep right now, which I hope you're not. And As we move into meditation or shavasana, a lot of people are familiar with that feeling of shavasana or acupuncture or massage therapy, where you start to drop, right? There's a sense of dropping in. And when we're dropping in, we're starting to shift the brainwave states. And in altered states of consciousness and meditation and hypnotherapy, we're moving into the brainwave state of theta and of delta. And so we're moving into this calming brainwave state that allows the conscious mind to take a well-deserved rest. So maybe that can kind of give a little understanding of hypnotherapy in another perspective. And that if you've done shavasana, if you've done meditation, if you've received a massage and you went into that place where you weren't asleep, but you were awake, but you were in this kind of dreamy, awake place, that you were in that place of connecting, you were in an altered state of consciousness. And also just putting that into perspective, when we go into dreamland, we're entering altered states of consciousness. Every night we dream, we're going there. Okay, so moving back to the pillars is hypnotherapy, and then transpersonal psychology, which is psychology that's beyond the personal. So it's the psychology that is the unseen, the spiritual. And then integrative energy medicine, which includes yoga and breath work and guidance in plant wisdom and in connecting to the energies that we are, these energy beings. Buddhist philosophy is the fourth pillar. These aren't really in any order, I'm just kind of saying them. And then the last is earth-based shamanic wisdom and tools. So just thinking that in itself, that's pretty expansive counseling approach to working with an individual or with groups. This practice was developed and founded by Isa Jukardi. She's my beloved teacher and mentor. She founded this in the 90s. And what's different about depth hypnosis is that it expands the traditional practice of hypnotherapy tools. And it does that by offering more tools for working with clients. And it does that by following current life issues to the root causes. And we do that by bypassing the conscious mind. And that's where people, I think, often get a little uncertain of, well, where do we go if we bypass the conscious mind? And, if we kind of think about being in Shavasana and your conscious mind is taking that wonderfully well-deserved rest, you're not planning anymore. And that doesn't say you always are, right? There's sometimes in Shavasana where the mind still just is going crazy. But if you think about moments where you've been able to touch that, you've been able to feel that place of being not in that conscious mind, but still you're there. That's when we bring in self-hypnosis. That's when we bring in meditation. That's when we do the inner child work. That's when we do the age and the past regression therapies, so that we're looking at these deeper underlying issues when we're in the safe, supported, awake space, but you're in that brainwave space that's calm. And what often happens is, because we have stories, right? We create stories around our experiences to feel safe. And those stories are so important because they become a way to understand the makeup or the configuration of how we've coped through an experience that may have been traumatic or harming or hurtful. And in this altered place, this, you could say hypnotic place, this altered place, you're now able to access it without maybe clinging to the story as much as you did before. So there's a little spaciousness in that place of the unseen. And that's where we start to see our blocks, our patterns, the difficulties. And we can do that by connecting to that deep wisdom that's within each of us. So different types of techniques that we use in depth hypnosis would be meditations that create the connection to experience our inner wisdom. We use insight inquiry, which is something I think you and I are going to do today. Suggestion hypnosis, which is a little bit more of traditional, where, you know, for work, someone comes in with an addiction or negative thought forms, and they might not want to completely do depth hypnosis. Depth hypnosis is several sessions. We usually suggest starting with 3 and then kind of seeing where things go from there. And so suggestion hypnosis would be someone coming in just to do 1 session, and we want to really provide a recording for them so that they can take that with them to help them rewire the structure of those thought forms around maybe said addiction or phobia. And then if some people come in and say, there's a deeper root to this, and I'm really wanting to go further with that, and then we would move into depth hypnosis and really go into age regression therapy, either age or past life, the removal of energetic interferences, parts integration, which is the coming to peace facilitation, navigating client blocking behaviors, alternative altered state practices, which include meditation and the shamanic journey, dream interpretation, which is a huge component to this work, soul retrieval, power retrieval, and several other different aspects that we bring into the modalities. So it's really vast method of counseling that I can share that has very much transformed my life. I've been a mindfulness guide and spiritual counselor for many years, along with teaching yoga and meditation and somatic body work. And I always felt like there was something missing. I had the Buddhist perspective in terms of the spiritual philosophies of Buddhism that I applied to my life, and the integrative energy piece, and also the transpersonal psychology, because I studied at Naropa University at the graduate level in 2003 in Boulder, Colorado, which is a Tibetan Buddhist school. And but the hypnotherapy and the earth-based shamanic wisdom, I hadn't really conceptualized or understood. And as I got into my deeper studies with Isa and the sacred stream, I couldn't help but smile as I was learning, because my inner guidance already had known so much of it. So it was almost like a homecoming. And it was able to create in my professional life a really solid container to provide so much more for my clients. And as a mother, in my personal life, the practice itself has completely been paramount for me in my personal life, with my son, with my family, and with all the relationships I have in my life. And now I have a community, which, I love, again, that you just mentioned how lonely these paths can be, because I did for a long time. I really felt I had clients who wanted me to refer them, and I didn't really know anyone who had been cultivating and combining the field of work that I had been dancing in and merged together. And so I didn't have the trusted guidance of, yes, I feel like this practitioner would be wonderful. And I knew there was something more. I always kept holding out, like, there's something more, but where is it? And so in 2018, I found Isa. I was in a program called the Embodied Philosophy. They're out of New York. They're an online facility that they offer, just amazing courses. And she was teaching on plant medicine and trauma. And she was teaching about depth hypnosis. And I went online and I said, that is it. This is the missing piece that I've been looking for. And I'd planned that year to just dive right in. And I got pregnant. And so I took a little step back, and I was really grateful that I did, because coming in to do this work at such a level in my life, after having a child, and then right after I had my son, the pandemic happened. So I was in a really very lonely place, and so it was just so paramount on a personal level to gain more tools and gain more access. And now it's always an honor, but now it's just such a deep honor to have this this foundation and the support that I carry with me, not in my daily life, but also with my clients. So I'm creating this, and then I'm supporting my clients in creating their own foundation within themselves. And that's ultimately the thing, is that we aim to assist each person to connect to their highest good, to connect to that part of them, so that they can learn these tools, and that they can have a journey practice and a practice themselves. And so that it's not that they need me, but I'm there to help them in the unseen. And then they also have their practice that they're cultivating. So I have my own depth hypnosis practitioner that I see. My partner and I, we see one as a couple when it's part of the parenting journey. It's an interesting one, I will share. Our baby's 2.5 and toddlerhood, lots of beautiful emotions that are coming through. So, we go in usually once a month and meet with our practitioner, and just kind of bring up those things that we can see, but when we're in it, it's really hard to see it, right? It's really hard when we're in it, our own process. So having that support system to hold that container for us, so that we can be human and move through it, and then be able to see it on our own, is so freeing and so powerful. And it can fill us, if we're open to it, to receiving these parts of ourselves again, with our own personal power again. That you mentioned disconnection. When we have disconnection, it can be looked at from a shamanic perspective as a power loss, or in some level a part of us has been disconnected to ourselves. And so looking at those blocks from when that happened, looking at how we retrieve it, or what healing needs to happen to bring those parts back.
Wow. I mean, sign me up. Right? I'm like, oh my goodness, that's so amazing. Like that just, yeah. Yeah. Transformative, right? I mean, truly, like, and just the scope of it as you share the pillars, I'm like, what? Like that, I mean, that's incredible. The breadth and the depth of it. The depth of wow. Yeah. Just while we're here on depth hypnosis, like, as for someone listening in who's like, oh my gosh, sign me up. Like I'm, how would somebody connect with you? I mean, I'll put your information in the description and everything, but how might somebody connect and be able to learn more and, explore offerings that you share?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. So they can go to my website, which is KristinaRenée.org. And the spelling, I think you can see it right there. And you can just kind of meander the website and kind of read more and see how that all resonates. And I do offer 10-minute complimentary alignment calls. And some alignment calls are for people who are just wanting to learn more about depth hypnosis. Some people call in because they want to know more about me. A lot of this work it's very vulnerable to do this, to do any healing, to go into any space where you are going to look at your patterns, maybe phobias, addictions, behaviors that you know are causing harm to you or another person, and then looking at how we feel around those aspects of ourselves, anger and sadness and grief and shame and all those very real human things. So the 10-minute alignment calls are a way just to connect and to really see, does this resonate for you? And just knowing that, like oil and water, we're all going to resonate with different people. So people can connect with me, and if it doesn't resonate, I can refer you out to other depth hypnosis practitioners. I don't take any offense to that. We really got to be truthful. That's part of our inner guidance of, does this really work? And also knowing there's seasons. Sometimes we're not ready for certain things. So just really honoring and trusting that. So that would be where I would, encourage people first is, check out my website, KristinaRenée.org, set up a complimentary 10-minute alignment call. And then from there, we would set up sessions, and, if it aligned, and sessions, right now, currently, I don't have too many people who do one session. I've had a few in the last year, but most people are coming in, and that doesn't say we can't do that. But most people are coming in just realizing that, one, we want to deepen this rapport and we want to deepen this relationship. And so that does look like several sessions. And just to give you an idea, I think this might be also helpful. In the very first session that we do, I consider it the most heady session we will ever do together. And I tell people that pretty upfront. It's, and I mean heady in the sense that it's about 14 questions. And it's called an emotional biography. And so we spend that first session with me doing insight inquiry around these 14 questions of this lifetime, and not just your experiences, but the emotion of those experiences. So that's kind of like the container that's held in that very first session. And one of the ways I like to encourage people to think about that first session is, if you think about the earth, and maybe under that soil, you have these pockets of a little den over here, and a little space for like the worms, and a little space for over here for something, and things have all been pretty compartmentalized under there. You can kind of maybe see the metaphor that I'm saying here around our subconscious. And when we do the emotional biography, it's sort of like we're sort of shaking the ground. There's a little bit of a movement, or aerating. I think that's the word. Is that the word?
That's a great word. Yeah, I
hear we're aerating the earth.
Yeah.
And as we're doing that, it's shaking things up, and all of a sudden, these little pockets or containers or holding spaces that we've put our lifetime stories in are starting to kind of get unearthed. And so that first session, I like to describe it in that way, because we're not going to deep dive in on our first session. We're just gonna like let the soil get a little love and bring things up. And then on that second session, it's when we do our very first inner guidance journey, and it's the very first time we do what could be called, a hypnotherapy. But for most people, it's a guided meditation. It's an inner journey, and that's a really paramount aspect, because you're meeting a part of yourself, a compassionate being on this journey that has only your highest good as its sole intent. And that becomes, a guide, that becomes a helper, that becomes a part of you that's already a part of you that you're deepening a relationship to. And then we take that with us as we move into the next sessions, where we start really looking at, if someone comes in and says, I just can't shake this feeling of anxiety, like I have it every day and I don't know where it's coming from. And so we start to, okay, let's look at that. And then we do a lot of insight inquiry around it. And then we go into a process of, and we'll see where we go. We never know. Here's the thing with depth hypnosis, and Isa, she's like, you're walking in the space of the unknown. Is when we go into a process, we don't know what we're going to find. We don't know if we're going to go into a place of regression in a past life or an age, which is, the age regressions are also known as inner child work. We don't know if we're going to find energetic interferences or, these different types of retrievals that need to come through. So it's very spacious. And that's why the place of the unseen and the seen, right? Dancing between these two worlds and being flexible. So having that foundation of the method is paramount so that we can hold that container for the unknown. And then all the processes after that, we come in and people, come into session and they say, here's what's present. And then we get to the root of it. And then we go in on a process around that. And we provide insights, bringing with you, the client, that part of you, that compassionate being. So every time you're bringing that part of you with you, so you're already having that support along that journey.
Wow. So grateful for the work. Yeah. So grateful for, what you're sharing and what you are offering clients right now, and what Isa and the Sacred Stream community, right, that y'all are offering the world.
Yeah. Isa's,
That's incredible.
she's such a light, and the Sacred Stream and the fellowship there.
Wow.
Yeah. And living in right relationship. That's really, really important. Really true to the practice.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I love it. I just think the breadth and depth are so crucial, right? I mean, I have a therapist that I go to, and it's mostly talking through, but she does some other alternative things, which I appreciate. But hearing you kind of talk through it, I'm like, oh my, this is like a whole other level of exploration. And anyway, so exciting. So exciting. I think and correct me if I say this, but as I'm hearing it, I'm like, how can we become more aware of, I honestly, like, as I'm hearing it, I'm like, how can I, like, if I were to dive into sessions with you, it's like, how can I become more aware of the unseen and the infinite love that is constant, that's constant, flowing to me, through me, from me, or whatever, like, and yet I have all of these walls and experiences and traumas that are like, almost, they're distracting me, they're triggering me, they're pulling me into patterns of behavior and thought that are just like, are not serving my life, my relationships, right? And so just the depth, I'm like, oh, that's so incredible. Oh, thanks for downloading that. That's so helpful. That's so helpful. I had one question with regard to it, like, so, and share if it feels comfortable or not, but the, depth hypnosis, for you, what was and it doesn't have to be a personal, but like, what was a personal takeaway that was like, I heard you said you heard Isa in this training or whatever, but it was like, as you've walked through it now and been in it with yourself and offering it, like, what's like a takeaway, like, just how is it bringing greater peace to your life? Or, you know, or what's a, if it's not peace, what, you know, what is it bringing to your life?
Yeah, I think I want to answer that.
Yeah.
But you mentioned talk therapy, and I just want to put this out there
Yeah.
because it has a place.
Yeah.
And there's so many people in the last, especially several years, because of this global crisis that we have all been in on a very big collective level. It's unearthed a lot of personal trauma that people kind of enjoyed having under the earth, right? It's like, it's nice down there. I don't want to look at it. So it's really, you know, brought everything up. And there's more people recognizing that, you know, the mental, and to me, mental health is soul health. This isn't just my mind. This is my, you know, this is a spiritual path, regardless if you're religious or not. You know, you are an energetic being. There's a spirit of some light or sound or something within these bones, this flesh. And that's my interpretation. And that doesn't mean that anyone needs to believe that to do this work. You can do this work and be religious in a completely different alignment than Buddhist philosophy. So I just kind of want to just put all that out there, that the talk therapy has a place. And that, you know, depth hypnosis is expanding that. So that this isn't about a hierarchy or one being better than the other. It's really about what's in alignment for you in those moments. Like in my 20s, talk therapy was great. I was 20. I mean, I needed to talk a lot. I don't know, 20, I was trying to figure out the world and my ego. We all have ego. Ego is so important. It gets us through our waking days. It reminds us to brush our teeth, right? But it was very strong in my 20s, and because I was just trying to figure it out. So the talk therapy was such a great place to do that. And then throughout the years, you know, there was just other things that, because it just wasn't resonant. And that's, I just want to make sure and putting that in the field, that wherever you are, and if it's working and it's facilitating and it's truly giving you the deeper connection to yourself, then you know, honor that. So you know, just kind of want to remind us of that.
Totally. Beautiful. I mean, talk therapy did help Sarah and I a ton over the last couple of years. So yeah, 2.5 years. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, our therapists will go down in our history book, you know, of like, hallelujah, thank you, we're so glad we found you. So totally.
And having those support structures. So, you know, when you ask what's my takeaway, you know, it goes back to it's the support structure within myself. So as we reclaim these disconnected or lost parts of ourself, we are moving more and more and more into our authentic self, what truly is in alignment, without being, you know, unclear or clouded by interferences of energy. And another way to think about interference of energy is a way in which we coped a trauma. Another way to think about this, you know, now that I can't say everyone, I really try not to speak in too finite. But right now the culture is becoming more and more conscientious of the nervous system and of the particular fight, flight, fawn, and freeze responses. And those two, right, can happen in the body. And that trauma place of being in those places, fight, flight, fawn, and freeze, is where those interferences of energy can come in, while that that part of us got disconnected. Something came in to help us. And then that ends up staying with us. And that's when we're like, I keep doing this thing and it's like, why do I keep saying this about myself?
Yeah.
I don't believe it, but I can't stop it. Or, man, why do I, when I get mad, like I keep doing that to the person I love. Right. And that's where it's like, oh, there's some disconnect there. So let's open up a compassionate space and look at it and see it from a lens of how it did serve you at some point, and how to create a clarity around that. And also what part of you needs to come back, and making that, you said the word peace, that inner peace with that part of you to heal, that didn't get to maybe heal in that moment because the trauma was so intense.
Yeah.
So, to answer your question, coming back around, I kind of trail off and come back and trail off. So.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Is the support of my internal world, and how that has brought me closer and closer into my relationship to self-trust, self-love, self-compassion. And where I don't feel that is where my work is. We're like, oh, something's amiss. And then I have my practices that I have my support systems. I think one of the words you used was like a strategy. What's your strategy? And to come back.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. I'm curious, I desire to dive into a little inquiry if you're open to it.
Sure. Yeah.
With me, just because as you were sharing, you were saying like, why does this continue to, why do I keep hearing this, or why do I keep doing this, or what's, I don't actually believe that, but I keep hearing it and it's still so loud, and not that so I guess, yeah. So do you mind if we do that?
Of course. Yeah. I think that'd be,
and I mean, I don't know how to,
the word for me is, that sounds fun.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Same. I'm like, well, because it's so like probably a decade ago, my buddy, I'll just do a 90 seconds on this. My buddy Scott said, dude, you're obsessed with not being enough or not doing enough. He's like, that you literally are just constantly like, it seems like you're acting from this place of, or showing up from this place of like not enoughness, or not. Anyway, long story short, I just started to, like, over the last decade, I've just been having this conversation with myself. What is this enoughness story? I was raised in a church. I don't know if you've heard of like Mennonites, Church of the Brethren, and Quakers, but they're
I have
Anabaptists, like peace people and servants. Like, I was taught to be the hands and feet of Jesus all the time, at all costs, like just freaking like, and I was not taught that I did not get the download that I'm loved infinitely. Like, I got the download I should love infinitely. I didn't get the download like that. The whole self-love, I feel like the last 20 years has been like, oh, I'm also worthy of care and support, and but I feel like the sermons I was hearing growing up were like, did you pick up the recyclables that you walked past on your way home? Like, if you saw a can, you better pick it up. If you see somebody struggling, you better help them. So it's led me, Kristina, to literally, like, I'll literally be in the shower and I'll hear the guy on like the pastor on my shoulder saying, you should not be taking a shower longer than a minute and a half. Like, and I'm like, okay, so I just, anyway, so it's this and he's not as loud. That pastor is not as loud as he once was, but he's still kind of loud. He still chimes in on this, like, and especially the last 2 years, right, of when the world seems like it's just burning down. Like, if I get on the news, right, if I allow myself to explore what's actually happening around the world, like, it's like, the shoulders just kind of go into defeat zone. And yet for me, I'm supposed to be the hands and feet of Jesus at all times. Like, and right now am I doing enough to help the world?
Mhm.
Is like a day, so anyway, all right, that was longer than 90 seconds, but I think you got it. You got my download on
Yeah.
enough journey.
So when you think about this,
Yeah.
and you think, you've already alluded to that this is something you had an upbringing in.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were just kind of sit back for a moment, can you think about when you first really started to feel like you weren't enough? Like maybe the first or most significant time that really came through for you.
I mean, it was definitely the like 4 or 5 years old trauma where I was, yeah, like, I don't know, I struggle to use the word, but I was semi like molested by a neighbor friend, at 4 or 5, like that definitely. But we were told to stop, and my parents did the best they knew how, and like showing up for me, but like, hey, we'll listen to you talk about it. But it was kind of like, what we weren't going to tell anybody, we weren't going to tell other family members. So like, what I had done was wrong, I think, is how I interpreted the reaction. It was like, you need to stop that thing that just happened cannot happen again. And so I think maybe that's where it initially started, where then I carry that. So it's like, do more, give more, like, you're not, so maybe to avoid having to feel that feeling.
Yeah, and what is that feeling?
I think just of like,
How does that feeling, like, how
yeah,
does your body feel?
just feel like, I want to be in the right, like I don't want to be on the wrong bus, right? I don't like, it's the journey of sustainability, right? It's like, I want to be sustainable all the time. I don't know how to be sustainable all the time in this world that I live in. No, like,
Mm.
so it's this right, like, I want to be right, but then I'm like, how can I be, can I live in this world and not, I it's hard to not embrace some of what the world is giving and sharing with me. And so I just, some of that right and wrong, like, I don't want to experience feeling wrong, like, yuck, like, so so then I don't speak what I think when certain things happen, in the world, or just in, like, I'm.
And how does that affect your present life when you don't want to feel wrong, so you don't speak what you want to speak? How does that affect your present life?
Yeah, I mean, then I can become resentful, right? When I'm saying yes to things that I don't want to necessarily, when I actually want to,
Mhm.
I need a break or something,
And how does resentment impact your everyday life in your present time?
yeah, I think I mean, I think currently right now I'm like feel a bit more like, what do I have control over? It, like, I don't know, maybe I'm coming, like, I feel like it's right now I've been way more into dialogue of like, okay, what do I actually have control over, right? My mom's walking through a stage 4 diagnosis a year in, and I'm like getting the download daily, like, you don't have control over her. I want her to drink how many juices a day and eat how much broccoli and greens. And, you know, like I don't have control over her. She still gets to decide, you know?
Mhm.
So maybe there, it's like some of the world issues, right? I think I appreciate it. The micro, like the micro work is so crucial, you know? So I feel like it's kind of like leading me into like wanting to do this podcast, continue to do this podcast, like to remind myself and remind all of us, like our micro work, our micro transforming is so good. It's so good.
Mm.
Anyway.
Yeah, so just again, going back to how does you mentioned resentment and that you want to control.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you know about your relationship to control?
Yeah, I mean, I know that I like the dishes loaded in a certain way.
Okay.
Or no, you know, I mean, I know that um I know that it's I know that setting boundaries sometimes is hard because I don't really want to get I'd rather not run into this, you know. I'd rather not run into that, the rub and the challenge and the disagreement. Um
And when you do run into that,
yeah.
if you can just sit back for a moment, and how does your body feel when you run into that rub or that challenge? Or earlier you mentioned that the sense of feeling wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I want to run.
Okay.
It's crap. I mean, seriously, like 3 days ago, tiny little conflict. I'm out on my bike ride and I'm like, I just need to go find a monastery, get the frick out of this world. No, you know,
Yeah.
like that seems like like a happy place that, or it seems like it would be. So yeah, so the desire to the running tendency, because I don't want to feel wrong. I don't want to. Yeah.
And what happens if you feel wrong, if you stay in wrong in the feeling? And or if you don't know that answer, what would happen? And just kind of see what comes up. What would happen if you stayed in the wrong feeling, in the feeling of wrong?
Yeah, I mean, a couple things like when I feel like I go into um, I think I just get like I feel like apathy, like I would just become more apathetic. Like when I get into like just be like, I can't change it. Like I feeling wrong. Yeah, I mean just humbling, right? Just humbling. Like to yeah, be on the growth journey. I don't know. Yeah, the desire to just want the pastor to stop yelling at me about my showers, you know? It's like, so when I'm in the wrong, sometimes I'll intentionally take a longer shower just to be like, you don't control that voice doesn't have to control me anymore, you know, like
Mhm.
I have free will. Like I get to decide what I sign up for, you know,
So is this something you would like to explore more?
potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely want to explore more at some point.
Yeah. So just so that the people who are listening can
Yeah.
kind of, just want to thank you first off, Aaron, for your vulnerability
Hmm.
and sharing these parts of your life. And then just so those who are listening, from, what would we do now from here?
Yeah.
I would be holding this. I actually have several other inquiries around it.
Mm-hmm.
But they would be going a lot deeper and really want to, holding the container with sacredness. Because this is very personal. This is personal stuff that we're looking at. Then, we would hold this, and then we would revisit this on that third session. And we would look specifically at the feelings behind not feeling enough. And you mentioned resentment. So there's some stuff to work around resentment and around this not saying what you want to say because you're avoiding the feeling of wrong. So understanding that relationship, that there's a configuration there that's happening. So we would, end up exploring that more, and we're going in on a process around possibly the resentment. It could be something else. We'll see what comes up.
Yeah.
To see, to create a healing and to learn more about the process.
Yeah, and even allowing myself boundaries, like as I'm talking it through, right? I mean, that's something that it's way easier for her to like set boundaries and say no. Well, I think it is compared to me, like I feel like in our relationship, it's easy for her to say, yeah, I'm good. I don't want to go on that walk, or I don't want to go have that experience with you, or, it's easier for her or something, right? In my brain.
And I'm gonna kind of throw this out there,
Yeah.
and you just sort of see how it lands and resonates for
Yeah.
you. Is it a possibility?
Yeah.
That your relationship with boundaries is challenging because of running from the feeling of wrong? So you don't want to say what you really want.
Right.
But you don't want to feel as if you're not enough or wrong.
Right.
Is that just kind of letting that sit? Like, is that a possibility that that's what's making it difficult to set those boundaries and to know what those boundaries are?
Totally. Yeah, totally. Well, it's like a lot, like as a Church of the Brethren kid, like I want to write a book on how the Church of the Brethren upbringing, what are the gifts? Like there were definitely some gifts there, right? In like being generous and loving people, and but then I think most Church of the Brethren people I know are following the news like hawks and can't breathe very deep, So I'm also like relate. I just empathize, like that. I feel like for me, I'm working on boundaries of, all right, when is appropriate for Aaron to drop into some news, and how do I process that news? Because because the second I watch the news, I mean, typically I'm like, I need to go live in a monastery, right? Or I need to go find a simpler existence off the grid or something, so anyway.
And what's that? Yeah, I think maybe this will be the last.
Maybe
it's the last. I mean, that's the thing with insight inquiry. We could.
I know we could. Thanks.
But there is a time to kind of, hold that and close it a little bit. That experience of struggling to create boundaries for what you know that you need. What's that like for you? What's that experience to struggle to create boundaries for your needs? What emotions come up around that? What's that experience like, and how does it affect you?
Yeah. I just get tired.
Okay.
Get tired, and I just empathize with all the tired people who keep saying yes, or, like, I think there's like, I get tired and
so it's possible that that, that there's a lot of energy that's going into that.
Mm-hmm.
And is it possible that there's a part of you that is working really hard to keep that pattern going? And maybe there's another part of you that would like that pattern to be different.
Yeah, I'll breathe that in.
Yeah, that could resonate. It could be
Totally.
you know, and then just kind of, you know, for the listeners, I think that's the parts integration. That's like that coming to peace is recognizing, you know, these different parts within us.
Thank you. Thanks thanks everybody who's listening. Thank you for listening. And thank you, Kristina, for, wow. Yes, beautiful. Oh, okay.
Thank you, Aaron.
Oh, I'm so thankful.
Thank you for your vulnerability.
Yeah. Yes. Being raised by two counselors, vulnerability is way more natural for me, but but, and also I'm still sweating. And also my body's still, feeling it, and yeah. Thanks for diving in with me there on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm just holding all of that in the field.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, this is when I would deeply suggest, like, you know, connecting to the elements afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
hydrating and nurturing our bodies, giving ourselves sustenance, and being outside with the elements to help all of that sort of integrate.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron, thank you for
Oh my.
this.
Thank you for taking time. Thank you for taking time and sharing what you are bringing to the world. I feel so blessed to know you and just get to just over the last couple of years. I mean, we've seen each other a couple of times, but mostly just feel like anytime you drop something on through Instagram, I'm like, yes, let me breathe that one in. It's like a medicine, what you're offering is medicine to me. So I'm just thank you for offering who you are, and thank you for sharing today. I'm really excited for those who listened in, who are as intrigued as I am and excited as I am to explore deeper and more with Kristina Renée. I appreciate you so much.
And
any final words you want to offer the crew before I close us out?
You know, the only thing that's coming through is just be tender. You know, that there's so much happening right now in the world, and if you know you're finding yourself to struggle to be tender, just know that in your awareness that you're struggling, that's tenderness. And that there's so much support. We have so much, and there's so many people out in the world who want to facilitate these safe spaces so that we can feel that inner guidance and connect to it. And you know, here's our healing voices, Aaron. Thank you for having this platform and this space for people to come to listen and to learn, and to, you know, the more that we listen and take it in, the more that we can make those next steps to enter. And you know, I don't really have an office. I work, you know, worldwide virtually. Eventually down the road I will, but in a way you're walking into that container with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, thank you again.
Oh, thank you. Those of you who joined, grateful for each of you, and just thankful to be on the path with each of you. What a miracle it is to be alive, to share space, and to grow together in our own unique ways, finding our own unique rhythm. And yeah, so grateful to you, Kristina Renee. This is episode 44 of our Healing Voices podcast and YouTube channel.